So tell me how you got started with looking at all the Christmas lights.
Well, it actually wasn't me that started it. A reader called one year and said, "Hey," and this was a year. This would have been 26 years ago, I believe, and said, "Hey, you ought to come look at my tacky lights." And so I said, "Oh, okay," and went out and did a story. He was one of the first ones to have a lot of lights around here. So I did a story on him and his lights, and that was fun. The next year, I had several people call and say, "Hey, we want to be on your tacky lights list." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know I had one." But I said, okay, we'll do. So I did another feature the next year. And by the third year, I think we had 25 people who wanted to be on the list. That third year, I did drop the word tacky from it because I didn't think it was nice to call people's stuff tacky. But it just kind of kept growing. And through the years, at one year, I think there were more than 100 houses on the list. And unfortunately, in recent years, I've had to kind of scale it back just because it's just me going around looking at it, and I had to cut out kind of the fringes of our readership area because I couldn't get everywhere. Because I'm unlike Santa, I do not have a sleigh and magical reindeer. I just jump in my car and ride around and look. But that's kind of how it got developed.
So how many houses do you typically have now?
It's usually between 60 and 75, somewhere in that range. And one thing I want to make clear, this is not my list. This is the readers' list. I ask readers, please tell me which places you think are the best. And then when at least a couple readers nominate a house, I will go out and look at it. And people say, well, why do you go look at it? And it's like, well, one, I try to pick a winner every year, so I got to see what's out there. And two, believe it or not, some people will say, come look at this beautiful house at 5 Dewberry, whatever, Lane or Christmas Lane. And I go out and there are no lights because what happened is they meant to put their lights up, but they never got to it. So to make sure that there's something there, I try to go to every place.
So what are some of the most elaborate displays you've seen?
Well, they kind of break down a couple different ways. There are folks who really go wild with lights. There's a couple, one up in Idlewild, which is really pretty, lights all over house, trees, and everything else, and just lights. Then there are lights and figures, and people do everything from plastic blow-ups to wooden cutouts, which they make themselves. And then there are the computer synced displays where the lights are synchronized with music, so it'll go da 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 like that, and they're out there. And then new this year, which several people pointed out to me, we're getting some of the more of the laser light things where people put it in the yard and it shines up on the house. So that's what's out there.
Do you have any personal favorites? Things that you love seeing over and over?
I like going to see my pal Paul Glancy, his place. This year it's at Paul's Bakery. It used to be at his house, which was behind the bakery, and now Paul has it out there, and he's got a lot of light sculptures and out there. And nobody gets into it more than he does, and I always get a kick going out and seeing that.
And how long does it take you when you go see all these houses?
It takes me 3 nights, and it usually takes between 11 and 12 hours to get all the way around. And the worst thing is I can't do it. Some of the nights are nights when people are coming home from work, so that makes it harder to get around. I started on Sunday night this year because at least there's no work traffic that night, but it's a long haul.
And advice for people who are going to try to conquer the whole list?
Don't try to conquer the whole list. Take a section, or at least do it in sections per night. And one of the reasons I put directions on there is so people can kind of get a sense of where the houses are without putting it in their GPS. They can say, tonight we're going to do the South Stafford, or tomorrow we're going to do the city and somewhere else. Because I don't think the hardest thing for me is always trying to figure out how to get to all these places so I don't backtrack 12 times. And I did pretty good this year. I only backtracked once.
And how do you pick a winner?
I usually try. I say winner. It's less winner and more just a good example. And I do it just try to show the fun that people have doing this, and why do they do it? And I usually try to spread it around. Like I think this year this is the second year we've had winners from Stafford, but usually I tried to bounce it around. But and most of the time, what I call winners are people that have been on the list for a long time, and it's kind of just their turn. But that's what I do, that just so people can say, hey, this is neat. Why do people do this? What do they get out of it? How do they do it? That kind of thing.
And if somebody wants to send you suggestions for next year, if they missed this year, what do they do?
Just use my email, rheldelt@freelancestar.com, and send me an email. I used to take them by phone, but it's just gotten too crazy. And what really helps if they want to get on the list next year, give me an address, give me some simple directions where it is, a description of the place, and a phone number to reach someone during the day.